Awesome. Welcome to yet another episode of Breaking into PM. In today's episode, we have with us Naman. Welcome, Naman. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, folks, as usual, maybe a quick intro into our guest profile today. Then we jump right into the meat of the section, which is essentially how you can crack a role at Walmart and also learn, what the life of a product manager at Walmart looks like. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the description, in the YouTube description below, and we will definitely reach out to Naman post the session and also get your questions answered. But getting started, Naman graduated from IIT Bhubaneswar and then did his MBA at XLRI Jamshedpur. He did intern at Walmart as well, converted that into a full-time role, which is where he's working right now as an APM. Naman, would love to hear those thoughts that you had while picking a role, especially post XLRI. Did you have multiple offers? How did you get interested in product management? How did Walmart happen?
Sure, sure, Ross. Thanks for that question. So my journey into PM was completely, unprecedented, out of the box, never heard before. Engineering and then MBA and then PM. Uh, of course, I'm like kidding. It was a very cookie cutter sort of a template for getting into the PM role. I did my BTech at IIT Bhubaneswar, in which by on paper I qualified as an electrical engineer, but like I couldn't proceed ahead of Ohm's law. But I was fortunate enough in my institution to actually choose my electives to my own liking. So I chose electives which are centered around computer science and electronics. So I mostly studied signal processing. And apart from that, as many other folks in engineering, apart from studies, I was involved in dramatics, fine arts, entrepreneurship club, techno management, and social cultural fest. And through all that, I realized that maybe management is sort of my cup of tea. And as I mentioned, I worked on signal processing, and in signal processing, you mostly use MATLAB as the software. And I was fortunate enough to get an offer from MathWorks to work on the product MATLAB. I love that product, and it was like a dream come true for me to join MathWorks. So in the initial year, I was there in the leadership development program of MathWorks, which is EDG. So in that, I got the opportunity to work with the consulting team, the marketing team, the sales team on different product projects, and also on application engineering team. And I also actually wanted to become an application engineer, which is sort of like a pre-consulting pre-consulting role where you go on with the sales team and you pitch your product to people and build demos for them. But unfortunately, they required postgraduate degree to do that. So for the later year at MathWorks, I joined the development team, and in that team, I was actually building internal tools for MathWorks, and I developed the complete UI and backend of it. And I was actually owning the whole product. Like I was the only one supposed to develop it, gather the requirements, and do everything related to that product. And I started loving, product design and thinking from the consumer's perspective. And I decided that maybe that was what I wanted to do as a career. So when I started my MBA at XLRI, I got interested in actually all of the management fields, and enjoying academics actually helped me did do well in my acads as well. At Accelera, I made many good friends, made a network, which I'll come back to when you ask me whether MBA was helpful. I did many live projects with startups, which were not exactly core PM, but they were around the PM role. Like I worked with Tata Energy, where we had to improve their communication strategy. Then I worked with a startup, Springworks, which where I even recorded Spotify podcasts. So that was also fun. I did my internship, as you pointed out, at Walmart. I worked in the product management team only, but I worked on the product strategy for their wellness programs. I thoroughly enjoyed the internship. I got an offer, a PPO from Walmart, and then I joined Walmart. And it has been 3 months for me at Walmart. For most of the time, I worked on this tool called Health Pricing Platform. Uh, right now, I'm working on the specialty pharmacy team. So my team is actually health and wellness team. So we develop products which help us offer the pharmacy and clinics as solutions in Walmart US.
Okay, so then that meant once you got your internship, then you took up the PPO, and Walmart was your final destination where you are at currently. Did you have an interview round post that? Like, how does that process look like? Was it only the internship and directly you got the PPO? Or did you have other interviews as well?
Right. So I actually did not have to interview for the final role, but there were certain people who actually, even after completing their internship, had to go through one or two rounds of interviewing before they were offered an offer.
Got it. So then maybe what we can go deeper into was how did you crack the interview at the internship level itself, right? What did the rounds look
Mhm.
like? How did you choose, okay, hey, this is the one that I want to take up? And how did you prep for these interviews?
Sure. So I would say so. I'll start with the first question, which is what did the whole process look like? So there were four rounds to the whole process. The first, after the basic CV shortlisting, there was a submission round, and then it was followed by three rounds of interviewing. In the submission round, they gave us a complete case, a project planner where we had to plan improvements in last mile delivery for these food delivery projects for companies like Swiggy and Zomato. So we had to, go through the complete PM process, discover the problems that the customers have, gather data around it, try to give solutions, prioritize all those solutions, and then finally present the actual solution, define the go-to-market strategy, and all that jazz. So based on this submission, there were eliminations, and then the people who qualified, they moved on to the next first round of interviewing. So the first round of interviewing was actually guided by the submission itself. So we were asked questions surrounding our own submission, that why did you give this solution? What drew you to these particular conclusions? Where did you gather this data from? And they also like questions around, uh, can you use this solution on somewhere else? So they wanted us to think, they wanted us to have already thought through everything when we made our submission, and they were just checking whether we were thorough with it. And also in the first round, they asked us certain BQs like why product management, why did you do an MBA in the first place, and why should we hire you, and questions like that. The second round was a uh, very PM-ish interview. It was a case-based interview. The first question itself I was asked was, tell us your favorite product. And I said, I believe I said OneNote. And all the questions for around 50 minutes were about OneNote only. So they gave me certain problems about in a high churn rate. What would you do about it? And they wanted us to do a RCA, read root cause analysis. And once I centered down to the actual cause of that problem, the questions were, how will you improve that? What sort of metrics will you track? What will be your OKRs, and what timeline do you think that would be? They asked us, what sort of solutions can you offer for them? So yeah, that was round two, and all these rounds were eliminated. So you could have, only given round one or round two. So after round two, we moved on. I moved on to round three. Round three was mostly so a senior director took that interview. So that round was mostly about the cultural fit and product strategy. So most of, I think that was 30 minutes long. Most of the interview was about cultural fit and DQs, and some specific part of it was about product strategy. So that was my complete uh, experience of interviewing at Walmart.
Got it. So three rounds, right? Mostly that you had
Yep.
to. Awesome. And was there any specific interview prep that you did, or was it, maybe particular resources, books? Maybe you have a PM club at XLRI. What helped you?
Mhm. So, actually, we did have a PM club. And we do have certain other societies which help you prepare for it. So what they do is that they give you a PDF with basic frameworks for for preparation, which you can use in those interviews, the basic flow of answers that you need to prepare, an introduction to the PM role itself, so you actually know what you're getting into. So all those things which you can also find on the internet, and but very specific, specific to things that you can actually use in the internet, or in the interview. And apart from that, I also went through some of the mock interviews, both with my seniors as well as people outside. So I used some of these websites, and I went through a lot of mock interviews. I actually went through YouTube videos of communities like the Product Pro and other communities. That actually really helped me. So one day before the interviews, I was watching YouTube for the first time for a good reason. So yeah.
That's awesome to hear. Any particular books that you remember, any resources, given that you mentioned here in these 3 specific runs that you had? Was it just the XLRI resources that were super helpful and maybe some videos? Or, and also, yeah, I mean, before the other resources, is this something that you would be able to share with the rest of them in the description?
I am. So what I can do is actually mention links to all the frameworks and everything that I have in that booklet. I
That'll be
guess
helpful.
that would,
Yeah, I think
that
that'll be
would
helpful.
cover it.
Yeah. Was there anything outside of that you did to prepare?
I would say so. This is not super related to the PM prep, but before the PM prep, I also sort of on my own went through the case competition preparation for case interview preparation for consulting.
Got
So
it.
what that helped me do is that structure my complete answer. So they, help you structure your own thoughts, help you structure your answer to a particular solution. And I guess the interviewing, the case method in both consulting and product management are not very different. The only case is that in PM, case solving, it's specific to, softwares or a particular product. So that is what I went through. I didn't go through any specific book uh, that I can recommend.
Got it. No, thanks for sharing. I completely agree. I think especially for the case runs, I think I remember there's this book by Lewis Lynn, right? I think 164 questions. I think that one is super useful. But that brings us to the fun part of this interview, right? Thanks so much for going deeper into the Walmart journey, Naman. Naman, thanks so much for sharing that. I think this was a very interesting chat in general, digging deeper into the Walmart journey as well as some interesting, fun questions toward the end. Folks, if you want to connect with Naman, we will drop a link to his social profiles in the description. Feel free to hit him up, especially if you have some questions around breaking into a top tier MBA in India or breaking into a very, very interesting product role. We will also ask Naman to share with us the resource links and we will add it to a document. Of course, it will not be the XLRI document, but we will hopefully try gathering most of the meat from there. If you have any further questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below and we will try getting Naman to answer those. But with that tuning off from today's episode, thanks once again, Naman. This was a fantastic chat.
Thanks, for having me.